Richard Jefferies lies ill and close to death in his cottage at Goring-on-Sea in Sussex. Far from his birthplace of Cote in Wiltshire, in his mind he returns again and again to his beloved Marlborough Downs.
My old village. I planted myself everywhere under the trees in the fields and footpaths by day and by night. That is why I have never put myself into the charge of the many-wheeled creatures that move on rails, and gone back thither, lest I find the trees look small, and the elms mere switches, and the fields shrunken, and the brooks dry, and no voice anywhere. Nothing but my own ghost to meet me at every hedge.
The Drift of Time, compiled from the writings of Richard Jefferies by Sean Street, with Robert Stephens as Jefferies.
Forasmuch as it hath pleased Almighty God of his great mercy to take unto himself the soul of our dear brother here departing, we therefore commit his body to the ground, earth to earth.
John Brown is dead.
Is he really dead?
He is. He came home from his work in the evening as usual and seemed to catch his foot in the threshold. Fell forward on the floor. When they picked him up, he was dead.
According to the mighty working whereby he is able to subdue all things to himself.
I remember the doorway. A raised piece of wood ran across it, as is commonly the case in country cottages, such as one might easily catch one's foot against if one didn't notice it. But he knew that bit of wood well. The floor was brick, hard to fall on and die. I used to watch him mowing with amazement. Sometimes he would begin at 2:30 in the morning and continue till night. About 11 o'clock, which used to be the mower's noon, he took a rest on a couch of half-dried grass in the shade of the hedge. For the rest, it was mow, mow, mow for the long summer day. Now John Brown is dead. Died in an instant at his cottage door. Almost the first thing I did with pen and ink as a boy was to draw a map of the hamlet with the roads and lanes and paths, and I think some of the ponds, and with each of the houses marked and the occupier's name. Of course, it was very roughly done, and not to any scale, yet it was perfectly accurate and full of detail. Oh, I wish I could find it. The old woman tried to let the cuckoo out of the basket at Heathfield Fair as usual on the 14th. But there seems to have been a hitch with the lid, for he was not heard immediately about the country.
Come on, it's gonna rain.
Just before that, two little boys were getting over a gate from the hop garden with handfuls of lent
Give me the
lilies,
flowers. You'll
a
squash 'em.
beautiful colour under the dark sky.
Here, you hold 'em. I'll get over now.
Right, but hurry up. Grandma'll be waiting for us.
Hello. Will you sell me some flowers?
No, can't do that. We want these here for Grandma.
Well, get another bunch, and I'll give you twopence for it.
Oh, I don't know, sir. We said the budgets we find up to our Polly in Lemon.
Yeah, and they seem to spec 6pence for every bunch.
6pence?
Yeah, come on then, you, before the rain starts.
I don't think it'd be going to rain now. See? That cloud's passed.
Well, hurry up anyhow. Here, you can carry your own flowers now.
Well, get in then.
100 years ago, a little old man with silver buckles used to walk along this footpath once a week in the summer, taking his children over to drink milk at the farm. But though he set them every time to note the number of fields, so busy were they with the nests and flowers, they could never be sure at the end of the journey whether they were 8 or 9. And to make quite sure at last, he took with them a pocket full of apples, one of which was eaten in each field. And so they came to know for certain that the number of meadows was either 8 or 9. I forget which. And so you see, this great experiment did not fix the faith of mankind. Like all other truths, it has grown dim. But it seems strange to think how this little incident could have been born in the mind for a century.
Look, two, Troll's going, she's gone.
Well done, sir.
A local village is a very local place. There's no great variety of streets, no Charing Cross, no floating population that drifts up the Strand in endless stream, that drops into a shop and buys a cigarette for a penny, or an ormolu clock for 7 guineas. The same customer is never seen again there, but tomorrow a fresh one takes his place. In the local village, the customers are all the same. They are a fixed quantity. A glass is full of water, and you can't put any more in.
I've been down looking at that there dress material. Oh, I don't like this your shally-gally stuff. I asked the man, I said, haven't you got nothing stronger? Haven't you got any gingham tackle? And he gets down a roll of this other stuff and he says, "You're madam, you're something that'll wear like pin wire," he says. Well, it was better, but oh, it is all so dear. Gallus dear. A few years ago, we had a servant girl come up from the farm to work. Do you know, she wouldn't touch butcher's meat when she first come. Not for weeks. She never tasted it before, see? Thought she wouldn't like it. They only had bacon at home where she come from, down at Coombe Bottom. She was a funny one, she was. Never wrote home to her parents, no, never. And she could write too, but she never did. And she never tried to get in touch with them any other way, neither. Said it was no use. No postman came near. And when she tried in the past, they never got there. She was a strange one. She told me they used to eat raw bacon down Coombe Bottom. Yeah, raw. I asked you. And sometimes they had lettuce pudding for dinner. Oh, I don't know, I'm sure. Oh, but there was one poor girl down there, had fits. Oh, had 'em all her life. Ever since some stupid fella had this joke during haymaking. He picked up this snake and he put it round her neck. Now, I ask you. Poor thing she was. But this girl from down Coombe Bottom, when she came at the farm, it was her told me to put an oyster shell in me kettle to stop the scaling. Yeah, and it works too. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, I says to the man in the shop, I says, I'll have some of that gingham tackle. Mind you, not that 'tis good enough for most, is it? Oh, no. They gotta have the latest fashion, haven't they? Don't matter about the quality, 'tis the style of the day they girls be after. Honest, don't matter if it's the poorest girl with not 2 yards of flannel on her back, she gotta have the same dress as a squire's daughter. I asked you, Donny Thorntons and parasols for them as works all day reaping in the sun. Yeah, and kid gloves for them as milks the cows.
The gamekeeper's cottage stands in a sheltered coombe, or narrow hollow of the woodland.
As indoors as kills half the people. Being indoors 3 parts a day. And next to that, taking too much drink and victuals. Eating's as bad as drinking, and there ain't nothing like fresh air and the smell of the woods. You should come out here in the spring, where the oak timber's throwed, the sap be rising then, see, and the bark strips, and just sit down on a stick fresh peeled. Well, I mean the trunk, you know, and sniff up the scent of that there oak bark. Goes right down your throat and preserves your lungs as the tan do leather. There's always a smell from trees, dead or living. I could tell what wood a log was in the dark by my nose. And air is better where woods be. The ladies up in the great house sometimes go out into the fir plantations, the turpentine scent strong, you see, and they say it's good for the chest. Well, bless you. You must live in it. Peoples go abroad, I'm told, to live in the pine forest to cure 'em. I say, these here oaks, they got every much as good, and that way, yeah.
There was another footpath that led through the peewit field, where the green plovers forevermore circle round in the spring, then past the nightingale field, by the largest maple trees that grew in that country. This, too, was all grass. Another led along the water to Bluebell Land. Another into the coombes of the hills, all meadows, which was the beauty of it. Although you could find wheat in plenty if you liked, you always walked on grass. Of one other path I have a faded memory, like a silk marker in an old book. In truth, I don't want to remember it except the end of it, where it came down to the railway. So full was the mind with romance in those days that I used to get up there specially in time to see the express go up, the magnificent engine of the broad gauge that swept along with such ease and power to London. I wish I could feel like that now. The brooks have ceased to run. There is no music now at the old hatch where we used to sit in danger of our lives, happy as kings, on the narrow bar over the deep water. The barred pike that used to come up in such numbers are no more. among the flags. The brook is dead, for when man goes, nature ends. I dare say there is water there still, but it is not the brook. The brook has gone, like John Brown's soul. If the history of the cottage folk is inquired into, it will often be found that they have descended from well-to-do positions in life, not from extravagance, crime, or any remarkable piece of folly, but simply from a long-continued process of muddling away money.
Oh, but you knows the trouble the cottage women endures on account of the beer, surely. Oh, it's past belief. I know one woman kept her cottage entirely on her own. Her husband did nothing but drink. Took her money from her by force, he did. Nor could she hide it anywhere in the house. He'd find it out all right. Anyway, at last, in despair, she dropped the silver in the jug on the wash-hand basin, and had the satisfaction of seeing in turn everything topsy-turvy trying to find it. But as he never washed, it never occurred to him to look in the wash jug.
What the? Oh my God.
Good heavens, what are you doing there? You can't lie there, my friend. Not in the middle of the road. One dark night, as I was walking along a lonely road, I kicked against something and just saved myself from a fall. It was an intoxicated man lying at full length.
Oh my God.
You come on now. The mail cart's due, with 2 horses fastened tandem fashion going at speed. They'll run right over you. There. You'll come to no harm there.
Who are you then?
My name is Jefferies.
Ah.
The incident passed out of my mind when one afternoon a labourer called asking for me in a mysterious manner and producing a couple of cock pheasants from under his coat.
My name's Obi. Obadiah. I ain't forgotten how you drove me out the road that night.
But you owe me nothing. And presents like these, well, they're embarrassing.
Well, you want to do something for it?
Well, you could find me a few interesting ferns and rare plants, if you like.
Ah. Oh, well. Yeah, right then. Right. Yeah, right, you be, sir.
And thus, a species of acquaintanceship grew up, and I learned all about O.B., the most determined poacher of a neighbouring district, and a notorious fighting man.
I lives with my granny, Thorny Lane. That'd be outside the village. Well, my mother be married again, you see, to the smith. Her've got a cottage as belongs to her. And my brother, I've got a van and travels up the country, and sometimes I and my wife goes with him. I learned to set up a wire when I went to plough when I were a boy. But I never took to it regular till I went navvying and see what a spree it was. Oh, there ain't no such chaps for poaching as they navvies in all England. Well, I mean, where there be a railway a-making. God, I've knowed 40 of them go out together on a Sunday, and every man had a dog. Sometimes 2, and good dogs and all. Not so much you wouldn't buy for 10 quid. And they used to spread out like, sweep the fields as clean as the crown of your hat. The keepers weren't no good at all. Besides, they never knowed which places was going to make for. Yeah, it'll do. Now then. Now soon, I took to it regular. It ain't no use unless you do it regular. And I does very well. 1 week with t'other, yeah? 1 week I don't take nothing. And the next I have a good all, chiefly hares and rabbits. 'Cause of course, I never goes into the wood nor the plantations. Once 8 to 10 with crepe masks on for a job like that, yeah.
Father stole the parson's sheep. A merry Christmas we shall keep. We shall have both mutton and beef, but we won't say nothing about it.
That's Louisa, the serving maid, chanting to the baby on her knee.
Freckles said when he came in, he never would enter a tawny skin. Some children takes a long time growing out of bedwetting, but I heard tell of a good medicine for it. You get some mousey and you bakes it in the oven to a scrump, and then you pounds it into a powder, and then you gives the powder to the child, see? I know lots of ladies says it really works too. Your father, the elderberry, was not such a gooseberry as to send in his bilberry before it was a dewberry.
John Brown is dead. To me, he is still in my mind the John Brown of the hayfield. There is nothing between then and his death. He used to catch us boys the bats in the stable and tell us fearful tales of the ghosts he had seen, and bring bread from the town in an old-fashioned wallet, half in front and half behind, long before bakers' carts began to come round in country places. Oh, you get away there. One evening, he came into the dairy carrying a yoke of milk, staggering with tipsy gravity.
No, I don't need no help, because I don't. Doing this for your, I can remember. I can pour the milk into the pan, so... Okay.
He fell at full length and bathed himself from head to foot. The hundreds of times I saw the tall chimney of that cottage rise out of the hillside as I came home at all hours of the day and night. The first chimney after a long journey, always comfortable to see. Especially so in the early days when we had a kind of halting belief in John Brown's ghosts. Several of them which were dotted along the road according to him. The ghosts die as we grow older. They die and their places are taken by real ghosts. Yes, the forefathers I knew are all gone. The stout man, the lame man, the paralyzed man, the gruff old stick. Not one left. There is not one left of the old farmers, not a single one. The fathers, too, of our own generation have been dropping away. The strong young man who used to fill us with such astonishment at the feats he could achieve without a thought. No gymnastic training, to whom a sack of wheat was a toy. The strong young man went one day into the harvest field, as he had done so many times before. And suddenly, he felt a little dizzy. By and by, he went home and became very ill with sunstroke. He recovered, but he was never strong again. He gradually declined for 12 months, and next harvest time, he was under the daisies. Just one little touch of sun, and the strength of man faded as a leaf. The hardy, dark young man, built of iron, broad, thick and short, who looked as if frost, snow and heat were all the same to him, had something go wrong with his lung. 1 12-month, and there was the end. I do not want to think any more about this. To understand a nation, you must go to the cottager. The well-to-do are educated, they have travelled, if not in their ideas. They are more or less cosmopolitan. In the cottager, the character stands out in coarsest relief. Character runs upwards, not downwards. It is not the nature of the aristocrat that permeates the cottager, but the nature of the cottager that permeates the aristocrat. The best of us are polished cottagers. Scratch deep enough, and you come to that. So that to know a people, go to the cottage, not to the mansion. The happiest days become the saddest afterwards. Let us never go back, lest we too die. The perch used to drift down the stream and then bring up again. The sun shone there for a long time, and the water rippled and sang. And it always seemed to me that I could feel the rippling and the singing and the sparkling back through the centuries.
Let's go round the long pond. We never been right round it yet, have we? What about dinner?
Dinner? Travellers don't think about being back in time for dinner. We'll take some grub with us.
Let's get our spears. Where's your old compass?
I know, and we must have a medicine chest. And a map. We're bound to get awful fevers.
We can use plaids for medicine. There's sorrel.
We can nibble hawthorn leaves.
Or a stalk, can we?
Some watercress.
Or some nuts.
No, they ain't right.
So they went in and loaded their pockets with huge double slices of bread and butter done up in paper, apples, and a leg of roast duck from the pantry.
The savages are in hiding. Perhaps they're having a feast.
Let's do the map.
Give me an apple. You draw.
There ought to be names. What should we call this bit?
Let's call it the Gulf.
Fir Tree Gulf. And that island can be Serendib.
Where's Zimbabwe?
Yeah. And that's the unknown island over there. That's where the magician lives.
Eh?
You know. In a long white robe. And he has a serpent 100 feet long in a cave under a bramble bush.
Cool. Let's go there. Up this bank.
Oh. We ain't got a ship yet.
Write the names down, quick, before we forget them.
Well, that's your problem, isn't it?
Through the bars of my prison, I can see the catkins, thick and sallow grey on the willows across the field, visible even at that distance. So great the change in a few days. The hand of spring grows firm and takes a strong grasp of the hedges. My prison bars are but 1/16 of an inch thick. I could snap them with a fillip. Only the window pane, to me, as impenetrable as the 20-foot wall of the Tower of London. It is sweet on awakening in the early morn to listen to the small birds singing on the tree. No sound of voice or flute is like the bird's song. There is something in it distinct and separate from all other notes. The bird upon the tree utters the meaning of the wind, a voice of the grass and wildflower, words of the green leaf. They speak through that slender tone. Sweetness of dew and rifts of sunshine, the dark hawthorn touched with breadths of open bud, the the odor of the air, the color of the daffodil. All that is delicious and beloved of springtime are expressed in his song. Nor is it necessary that it should be a song. A few short notes in the sharp spring morning are sufficient to stir the heart. As evening approaches, the rooks begin to wing their way homewards. Sometimes a great number of them will alight upon the steep ascent close under the entrenchment on the downs, and from thence the wood and the beech trees where they sleep can be seen. Sometimes they wheel and circle in fantastic flight over the very brow of the down just above the rampart. And occasionally, in the raw, cold days of winter, they perch, moping in disconsolate mood, upon the bare branches of the clumps of trees on the ridge. The rustling sound of these thousands upon thousands of wings beating the air with slow, steady stroke can hardly be compared to anything else in its weird oppressiveness. It is a little like falling water, but maybe best likened, perhaps, to a vast, invisible broom sweeping the sky.
Up here in the plain, there are some mounds, or tumuli, about which nothing seemed to have been known, though they had evidently been cut into and explored. And at last, however, a farmer told me something about them. He cut them open. He had an old county history and several other volumes which he had somehow accumulated in the manor house farm. And, like so many country people, he was extremely fond of studying the past.
Oh, there, girl. Oh! Perhaps I should have found out something if it hadn't been for that there old dog as we used to keep in the tub at the back of the house. Such a lot of folk used to come to our back door all day long after victuals. Some out the village, some from the next parish, some as went round regular, and gypsy chaps, and chaps as pretended to come from London. God, you never saw such a crowd. Just because the old man and the missus was rather good to him, you see. So there they was, a-clackering at that door all day long. But this here dog in the tub used to sour 'em out sometimes if they didn't mind. Hey, get up there, girl, get up. She never barked, or nothing of that sort. Never let her know as there was a dog there at all. There she'd lie, as quiet, till they was just gone by a little. And out she slipped without a word behind him, and snipped him by the leg. Lord, how they did jump and holler. Hey, come round now, girl, come round. Come round, that girl. Still playing? Yeah. Evening. So you see, they had the pinch before they noticed he was there. Lord, what a lot she did bite, to be sure. I can't tell you how many. She did it so neat. That cat folk away a little, else I suppose we shouldn't have had anything to eat ourselves. None of them never went wrong, you know, never went mad or anything of that sort. Never had to send nobody to Paris in them days to be dog vaccinated. Curious, wasn't it? Must have been something different about folk then. However, This here dog was desperate clever at it. As I was telling you, I dug through them mounds, couldn't find no coins or anything. So I heard of a big archaeologist chap that was writing a book about the antiquities of the country, and I wrote to him about it, and he said he'd come and see him. The day he come was rather roguish and cold. He seemed sort of bad when he come into the house and had to have some brandy. By and by he got better, and out we started. But just as we was going through the yard, this old dog slipped him by the hand, took him right through his hand, made him look main straight. However, washed his hand, bound it up, started out again. Hadn't got very far. He was getting through a hedge, and darned if he didn't fall into the pond, flop! I suppose he didn't like it, for he never said nothing about the mounds in his book when it come out. Left him out altogether.
I think of the drift of time, and I see the apple bloom coming and the blue veronica in the grass. 1,000 buds and leaves and flowers and blades of grass. Things to note day by day, increasing so rapidly that no pencil can put them down, and no book hold them, not even to number them. And how to write the thoughts they give. All these without me. How can they manage without me? For they were so much to me, I had come to feel that I was as much in return to them. The old era. I love the earth, therefore the earth loves me. I am her child. I am man, the favored of all creatures. I am the center, and all for me was made. I thought myself so much to the earliest leaf in the first meadow orchis. So important that I should pronounce it summer, because now the oaks were green. I must not miss a day or an hour in the fields, lest something should escape me. But today I have to listen to the lark's song, not out of doors with him, but through the window pane. And the bullfinch carries the rootlet fibre to his nest without me. They can manage without me very well. They know their times and their seasons. They go on without me. Nature sets no value upon life, neither of mine nor the larks that sang years ago. The earth is all in me, but I am nothing to the earth. It is bitter to know this before you are dead. These delicious violets are sweet by themselves. They were not shaped and colored and gifted with that exquisite proportion and adjustment of odor and hue for me. High up against the gray cloud, I hear the lark through the window singing, and each note falls into my heart like a knife. My old village, the story of my heart. Ha! But I have been conversing with learned folk about this place, and they draw my view to certain considerations. These very learned men point out to me a number of objections.
There are no ghosts there. That can be demonstrated.
The map is lost, and it might be asked, was there ever such a map?
No one ever saw any particular sparkle on the brook there, and the clouds appear to be of the same commonplace order that go about everywhere.
No one can find these footpaths, which probably let me know.
As for the little old man with silver buckles on his shoes, it's a story fit for someone in his dotage.
John Brown is dead.
And John Brown cannot be found to bear witness.
I begin to think my senses have deceived me.
And John Brown cannot be found to bear witness.
It is as they say. No one else seems to have seen the sparkle of the brook, or heard the music at the hatch, or to have felt back through the centuries. And when I try to describe these things to them, they look at me with stolid incredulity. No one seems to understand how I got food from the clouds, nor what there was in the night, nor why it is not so good to look at it out of a window. They turn their faces away from me, so that perhaps, after all, I was mistaken, and there never was any such place, or any such meadows, and I never was there. And perhaps, in the course of time, I shall find out also, when I pass away physically, that as a matter of fact, there never was any earth.
Forasmuch as it hath pleased Almighty God of his great mercy to take unto himself the soul of our dear brother here departed, we therefore commit his body to the ground. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes.
A few days later, Richard Jefferies died. He left his wife, Jessie, with 2 children. He was 3 months short of his 39th birthday. In The Drift of Time, Richard Jefferies was played by Robert Stevens. Also taking part were June Barry, William Edel, Steve Hodson, and Edward Kelsey. The boys were played by Matthew Arthur, Marcus Horner, and Daniel Porter. The music was arranged and performed by Pete Shuttler and Mac McCulloch. The Drift of Time was compiled from the writings of Richard Jefferies by Sean Street. Technical presentation was by Michael Burgess, and the programme was produced in Bristol by John Knight.